Here we go. Thank you. Again, good evening. I am Carol Perkins, President of the Columbus Board of Education, and on behalf of my colleagues and myself, we welcome you to our Grammy Award-winning Fort Hays Impact High School. And I will repeat, Grammy Award-winning. To our Education Secretary, Arne Duncan, Mayor Michael Coleman, City Council President Andrew Ginther, our chairs of the Columbus Education Commission, Judge Algernon Marbley, George Barrett, Kathleen Rancier, to all of the Columbus Education Commission members, all of my colleagues, my team on the Columbus Board of Education. Special shout out to our representative, Joyce Beatty, who made a special trip to be here this evening. Thank you. To all of our members of City Council and honored guests. Again, we welcome you. Our district mission is to ensure each student is highly educated, prepared for leadership and service, empowered for success in a global community. As a member of the board, all of us work hard to ensure the success for all students who come through our doors. No doubt, the work is hard, and we are challenged to find every resource and opportunity to make that happen. There are still many questions and decisions that have to be made regarding 21st century teaching and learning, such as, what is a typical student? How do we deal with 80% of our students who live in poverty? How do we support principals and teachers and provide all of the resources necessary, including superior technology necessary to do their work? How do we hold charter schools accountable, especially those who close, giving parents no notice, just to name a few? But such a challenge is not unique to Columbus, Ohio. Secretary Duncan is here tonight to speak to us about leadership in our schools. In order to be successful, we must be the leaders in that effort. This work should not be about politics, but about passion to do what is right for our students. This shared passion will drive us towards success and progress. Columbus City Schools has received unprecedented support from the business community. And people, our residents, the community, are paying close attention to what's going on in the district and how all of this work will unfold. Our community is hungry for change, and stakeholders throughout the city are well positioned to ensure it happens. The work of the Columbus Commission is to help resolve some of these issues that we face. I am confident that through hard work and collaboration, we will be able to transform our educational system and make Columbus a leading example of urban school districts across the country that experience some of the same issues as we are. The bottom line to all of this is this: our children deserve better than what has been given, and it is our jobs to ensure that we do. With that, I'd like to introduce Mark Reel, who is the CEO of Kids Ohio, and he will come forward and begin our discussion. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Perkins, and thank you to all of you who are with us this evening. The next person who's going to join us is someone who really needs no introduction, and that is the mayor of the city of Columbus. And for those of you who are here for the first time, this is a mayor who has been elected 4 times by the electorate. He's in his 14th year, and I think as his colleagues and members of the commission can point out, he is deeply engaged in the issue of education. So, Mayor Michael Coleman. I think as many of you know that we were fortunate to be able to get the U.S. Secretary of Education. It was a very, very demanding schedule. And I think most of you know that he was the superintendent of schools in Chicago, one of the nation's largest school systems. He has been Secretary of Education for 5 years. And earlier this week, among many other things that he's done, he addressed the U.S. Chamber of Commerce on the important issues of career readiness and school readiness. U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. We're fortunate to have a discussion with our leaders here this evening, and we'll start with you, Secretary Duncan. And again, thank you for coming to Columbus. And we have heard the President quoted and you quoted as saying that education is the civil rights issue of our time. Tell us what you mean when you talk about that, please.
I've said it repeatedly, and I believe it in the bottom of my heart, that if you can ride in the front of the bus, if you can have some of the rights that didn't exist 40 or 50 years ago, but you can't read, I don't think you're truly free. And if you can drink at the water fountain, go to the movie theater, but have no chance of actually participating in society, we're not where we need to be. And I think our divisions today, and not everyone will agree with this, our divisions today to me are less around race and class than they are around educational opportunity. And you give me the poorest kid from the toughest neighborhood and a tough family, put them in a great early childhood program, put them in a great elementary and middle school and a high school where they can take AP classes. And I'm actually really, really optimistic about that young person's future. But put that same kid, don't give them the early childhood opportunities, put them in a mediocre school, put them in a dropout factory, that child is basically condemned to poverty and social failure. And so the stakes here are extraordinarily high.
And Mayor Coleman, I know that you want to acknowledge some of our guests tonight, but I'm going to ask you the same question in just a minute. But go ahead, and if you want to, if there's anyone you want to acknowledge.
Well, we have the Congresswoman, Joyce Beatty here. I'm so glad to have her here. Members of the legislature, members of the Columbus Education Commission, along with the co-chairs of the Columbus Education Commission, members of Columbus City Council, Andy Ginther, who's the person that has worked very closely with me and City Council to make sure this Columbus Education Commission is brought together. We're grateful for him. He's been a champion for kids, and then our school board as well. They are here, and we're so glad to see them here as well. So
Mayor, you are the first African-American mayor of our community. We're the 15th largest city in the country. And when you talk about civil rights and education being the civil rights issue of our era, what do you mean?
Well, I too feel that education is the next civil rights movement of our country, and it should be right here in Columbus. You know, we had a movement for women, equal rights for women. We had a movement for the labor movement, the rights of workers. In the early parts of this past century, we had a voting rights movement. We had a civil rights movement for people of color. And what I see here is that all too often, the quality of one's education depends upon the color of your skin, the neighborhood in which you live, or the size of your pocketbook. And I think that's wrong. And a lot of movements are created out of wrongs. and something we need to make right. And what we need to make right is to ensure that every kid in our city gets a quality education. And we've had all these other movements. Now we need to have a movement that's focused on kids, on educating our kids, just as strong, just as powerful, just as important as that for women, that for the GLBT community, which is another movement that I support, labor, all these other movements over time and over history, to focus in on making sure our kids are educated with the best schools, with the highest education.
Thank you. We have a state superintendent of education who's with us, Dick Ross, and he's best known for saying no excuses. And I'm going to get in your face if I hear excuses.
Where is he?
He's right here in the front row, okay? And and so I want to point out that we're in a public high school, Fort Hays High School, which 10 years ago had a poverty rate of 36%. It was rated a B school. Over the past decade, this school has remained an outstanding school, but the poverty rate has doubled. It's now 73%. But yet it continues to be a B school. So Secretary Duncan, as you travel around the country, what are some examples that you can share with us of high poverty, high achieving schools or school districts?
In all these, I wish there was a simple answer and I could give a short magic bullet answer, and it's just, we all know it's much more complex than that. So there are many, many high-performing, high-poverty schools. Unfortunately, there are many more high-poverty, low-performing schools. And so this is something the whole country is struggling with. I'll just say a couple things that most folks here understand. First of all, that there does have to be a culture of the highest of expectations. The goal in a high school can't be just to graduate. There's got to be some form of higher education beyond that. There has to be a culture where AP classes and dual enrollment is the norm, not the exception. I go to too many poor communities where they literally have no AP classes, none. And then they say they're trying to get students college ready. That's not real. You have to have a culture where the relationships are very important, that every student has a teacher, a counselor, a social worker, somebody who can help them navigate the tough times. In far too many communities, we've eliminated all the enrichment activities, sports, dance, drama, art, music, academic decathlon, yearbook, Model UN. You need those kinds of things to keep students engaged in school. And then you have to address the very real effects of poverty. So when I ran the Chicago Public Schools, 85% of my children lived below the poverty line. We fed tens of thousands of students 3 meals every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And some folks critiqued me for that, but I thought if kids are hungry, it's pretty hard to concentrate. You got to make sure kids are safe. If they need eyeglasses, you need to get them eyeglasses. If they need a dental check, you need to do that. So the wraparound services. So I think it takes all of that. But at the end of the day, I've gone to hundreds of schools, some fantastic, some okay, some break your heart. I've yet to go to a great school that didn't have a great principal. Leadership matters tremendously. And the more you put great leaders and great teachers with the kids who need the most help, then you're in the game. Where you don't do that, you're kidding yourself. Everything else is around the margins.
And Milt Ruffin, who's the principal of this school, is an outstanding education leader. He's a well-known jazz musician, okay? But we also have 1,000 children on the waiting list for this school, and that's one of the issues that we as a community have to face.
Open up a second campus.
There we go. The Mayor Coleman, this issue of, you've spoken about the fact that 1/3 of Columbus kindergartners arrive at kindergarten unprepared. Another 1/3 need a lot of help once they get there. What's your thoughts about early childhood education? What should our community be doing?
Well, we need to make sure that every kid has an opportunity in pre-K education in this city. Now, the President has been outspoken about this, as has Secretary Arne Duncan. We support what the President's doing in that regard, and Secretary Duncan can talk more about it. But the Columbus Education Commission, one of the recommendations it is making is to focus on pre-K education for children in our city. And it is an expensive endeavor. The cost of pre-K And we have to find a way where we can pay for it in a way that's rational and reasonable. And we need the federal government to help us with that. But I can tell you that this community, through its recommendations, are going to be very focused on pre-K education. And we've got to have that happen in our community. It's essential to success to young people in our city.
And let me just say, Secretary, we'd like to hear you describe this initiative. I do want to just say that the commission that the mayor is referring to is 25 citizens from a broad range, from corporate executives to the head of the PTA. We have outstanding community leaders from United Way and the Urban League. And these 25 people have been devoting a tremendous amount of time to examining education and coming up with constructive recommendations. So if you would, we know you were in Wilmington, Delaware earlier this week talking about the preschool school readiness initiative. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, I'll be very brief, and did an op-ed in the Washington Post today if folks want to look at that. But this is arguably one of the biggest gifts I think we can leave the country. We have far too many children, as everyone here knows, entering kindergarten a year and a half, 2 years behind. And that's tough on the best of kindergarten teachers. And in education at every level, we are constantly playing catch up. And we all talk about the achievement gap. I keep saying we need to start talking about the opportunity gap. And I think we have to level the playing field. And we have to make sure our babies are entering kindergarten ready to be successful with their literacy and socialization skills intact. So this is a massive investment. It'd be $75 billion for the country. It dwarfs anything else we've ever done. For the state of Ohio, it'd be as much as $220 million, a 10-year program where we would only invest in states where they want to invest as well. This isn't a federal mandate or something folks have to do, but our investment would be 90 cents on every dollar to start with, so huge leverage on local money. We would scale down over the 10 years, would ask states and local communities to scale up. But the fact of the matter is today, less than 3 in 10 children have access to high-quality pre-K. And then we wonder why we have dropout rates, and we wonder why they struggle. There are all kinds of studies. James Heckman, who's a Nobel Prize-winning economist, 7-to-1 ROI. So for every dollar we invest, you get back $7 in the back end, more folks entering the workforce, less dropouts, less teenage pregnancy, less crime. This is arguably the best investment we can make. Why have we underinvested as a country? 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds don't vote. They don't have lobbyists. They don't have PACs. And the benefits of this are long-term. And most politicians think short-term. So if we can come together in a bipartisan way, we want to pay for it with a tobacco tax, 94 cents on a pack. By the way, the health benefit of this is 233,000 fewer young people we think will start smoking, so all kinds of health care costs will be saved. And even that reduction in smokers, we'll still hit our revenue marks. We've built that into the package. So I think this is literally a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It is the right investment to make. It is not a short-term investment, but for the long haul, I think we can change the opportunity structure for a whole generation of kids.
One of the issues that the Commission's been wrestling with, and many people here are interested in, are public charter schools. In Columbus, about 1 out of every 4 children, about 16,000 children, attend public charter schools. And maybe start here with Mayor Coleman. What are your thoughts about the role of charter schools, and also how to address this issue that in Ohio we have some persistently low-performing charter schools that are very hard to close?
Well, charter schools are here to stay. Public charter schools are here to stay in Ohio. And we need to be thinking about what's in the best interest of the kids, whether they go to district schools or public charter schools. We've got to think about them, what's best for them. And I do believe that public charter schools are going to play a role in the future, as well as they should now, but into the future, on educating our kids. And that's going to happen. The key here is to have good charter schools. Close the bad charter schools. There's plenty of them, and not enough good ones. And we have to replicate the good district schools in the process as well, like this school. This is a great school. And the secretary said, well, why not open up another one? We should. We absolutely should. I know there's costs and issues that we got to be worried about, but I think charters play a big role in educating our kids. Let's focus on what's good for them. And when it comes to district schools as well as charter schools, let's open, retain, expand, recruit, and replicate good district schools and good charter schools, and replace the bad ones. Replace and close the bad ones.
Mr. Secretary, we'd love to hear your experiences in Chicago on this, and also as Secretary, our understanding is there's over 2 million children nationwide now enrolled in charter schools. What's your thinking?
I think the mayor said it perfectly, and just appreciate his clarity and candor and courage on this. That I think in education, we as adults, so often, I can't tell you how infuriating it is to me, we fight the wrong fights. We talk about sort of college versus career. It's got to be college. It's always both and. It's neither. It's never either or. If you ask any 7-year-old, they don't care if they go to a charter school or a neighborhood school or a magnet school. Do I have a great teacher? Am I safe? Am I learning? Do I have a good principal? We need a lot more schools where children say yes, be they traditional or charter or whatever. And we need a lot less schools where children don't feel safe and where they're not learning, where there aren't high expectations. And these adult fights have done such a grave disservice. And I just say, when I visit a city, all kinds of data my team shows me. I always look at sort of one page of how many 9th graders a city has and how many 12th graders. You guys have just over 6,000 9th graders here, and you have less than 2,900 12th graders. You're losing more than half the students. And frankly, it's one of the few cities I've visited where you're losing more than 50% of every racial population. Whites, blacks, Latinos, you're losing half of everybody. The city deserves better. Your kids deserve better. And whatever the answer is, in whatever field or form, you guys need to change, and you need to change not around the edges, not around the margins, but real fundamental change. Now, change is hard. By definition, change is hard. But, so if you're losing half your kids, is your goal to sit here next year and say, great, we're down to 49%, or sit here 5 years from now and say, well, great, we're down to 42%? That's not acceptable. You got to get from 6,000 9th graders to 6,000 12th graders as fast as you can. And whatever it takes to get there, whatever China you got to break, you got to be willing to break it, and you got to be willing to do it together.
Excellent. Excellent. We have a few questions from the floor, but I want to ask the mayor. There's been a lot of speculation in the community about whether you want to take over the schools. And you've, for 14 years, said you don't want to take over the schools. What do you plan to do?
Look, I've said it 1,000 times. I guess I need to say it another 1,000 times. I have no interest in taking over the Columbus public schools. And I want to tell you why. And I want to explain my thinking and how I see my role as the mayor. First, I think this issue of power and control, if I take it off the table, let's get to the real issues, the kids. Let's talk about what it's going to take to educate those kids. And it's not about power and control. I have no interest in taking over the district. I don't plan on taking over the district. And I see my role as trying to facilitate the community, trying to align the community where the school board, the civic environment, the business community, city government, parents, and teachers are aligned, are aligned to think about one thing only, the kids, not about politics, not about control. And so I believe this whole discussion about mayoral control is divisive rather than uniting, and I think it's distracting rather than getting to the real issues. And so I view my role as kind of like, and somebody said don't say this, but an honest broker. That there's going to be times when I need to press upon the school board, which I have. You've all read about it. You've all read about it. But I'm speaking out and doing that out of what I think is best for the kids. And then this most recent thing about legislation in the legislature about a piece that where I'm proposed that I take over the school district or appoint a distress commission, I'm opposed to. And I know that was done by a representative of the business community was part of that. And so I'm saying, no, I oppose that, and I oppose this. This is the direction we need to go. So I'm trying to align the community so that we can focus in on kids. I view myself as the Chief Economic Development Officer for the city because we're trying to drive high employment, low unemployment, but we need to fill these jobs that are being created in Columbus, which, Mr. Secretary, we have among the lowest unemployment rates in the country, right here in the city of Columbus. But here's our problem. Here's our problem. All too often, kids are graduating and they're not prepared for the jobs we're creating. So there's time for help, and I'm trying to help and trying to align our community to fill those jobs. And finally, I really have 5 principles here that I want to get adopted through these recommendations. First, the first principle is that I want to see a sustained engagement by the community, by government, by the mayor's office, by the business community in educating our kids. Because it's not just the school board's responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility. And I often talk about stacking hands. This is where we stack hands. That we all have to have a part of this. And we can't just say, you guys go over there and do it, and we'll see you later. They need help, and we need to be there to help, but we need to do it consistently and regularly, both politically and through the community. It doesn't mean control. The second principle is alignment. Again, aligning the schools, the parents, the teachers, the civic environment with the school board, the government, myself, and everybody else. The third principle I think is really important to come out of these recommendations that will come out next week is innovation. I've always said about the city of Columbus, the government I run, that the cities that stay the same fall behind. So innovation in education needs to continue. We need a driver of innovation in the city to innovate new ideas for educating our kids. The fourth thing I think needs to come out of this is a check and a balance. Every government has a check and a balance. Every government has a check and a balance. The school district needs a check and a balance. That's what I believe. And the fifth thing is that we need to focus on education for the kid. Focus on education for the kid, whether it is for the young person, whether it is district or charter. Let's focus, let's be kid-centered, student-centered, not jurisdiction-centered, not district-centered or charter-centered. Let's do what's best for the young people of our community. Those are the 5 things I want this commission to advance. And we've talked about it, and they have talked about it. And they have a lot of the things to talk about over this next week. Because you know the recommendations come out next week sometime.
We've got questions from the audience, and the first one's for you, Mr. Secretary, from an organization called Southside Stay, a group that's trying to promote neighborhood schools in their neighborhood. And what do you think the role of city government should be in education?
I think, as the mayor said, the idea of control is a bit of a red herring and distraction. For me, it's not about control, it's about leadership. And you need everybody in this city rolling up their sleeves and working together. And it starts with the mayor. And if a mayor isn't putting the full weight of his office and all of the city agencies behind this, I honestly don't think urban school systems can do this by themselves. And I worked as hard as I could, but I had every single day Mayor Daley and other folks out there helping to champion and pushing me. And so you need great teachers, you need great principals, but the business community, the philanthropic community, the faith-based institutions, and nonprofits, everybody has to step up. And city government has a role to play. But I think the honest truth here is I think there are a lot of people who sort of stepped back and just said, let the school system do its own thing, let the board do its own thing. And I don't think any of us are happy or satisfied with where we are today. And so no one gets a pass. This is about mutual accountability, but everybody has to step up and play a bigger role.
Well, for you, Mayor, we have a question from the Clintonville Go Public, which is a group neighborhood here locally. Secretary, they want better public schools in their neighborhood. How can a district have both vibrant neighborhood schools while maintaining school choice?
Well, that's what we need to have. We need to have quality schools of choice, quality neighborhood schools of choice. Part of this effort, Mr. Secretary, we had probably the most extensive community outreach that this city has ever had. We had community forums, we've had all kinds of ways for the community to engage. And one of the top things that came back from that experience when we went out and talked to people was the need for that school in their neighborhood to be good. Because what happens now is they see a school somewhere across town. That's a good school. So they put their kids on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning to travel cross city to get to a school of choice. But the school the next block over is not a school they would send their kid to. And so what we have to do is to figure out a way to make the school the next block over the school of choice, the neighborhood school. And so this whole effort that we're going to hear more about, the recommendations coming out this week or next week, is going to focus on quality neighborhood schools of choice. That neighborhood school is of enough quality that that'll be the school of choice. And the way you do that, and the commission will talk more about it, is this focus on allowing principals to lead the way for their schools and to give the teachers the flexibility to teach. You know, I love teachers. They're, you know, they are the key to all this. But for teachers, I wouldn't be right here today. But the principals are the ones that should have power and authority and responsibility and accountability for their own buildings. And that's what we've learned about in this commission effort, the importance of the principal to get the best teachers in their school and to do the things necessary to make their school as good as any other school.
Yeah, just two thoughts as you guys are thinking about all this. I don't want to blow through the idea of replicating district success. And I think that the great charter schools have done a very good job of spinning off and finding out how to do that. But where you have a waiting list of 1,000, right, your customers, your kids, your parents, your families, they're telling you something. And where you have a great principal, have them train 2 assistant principals and have them spin off this idea in other areas. And I think school districts have to become much more nimble at replicating success. And where you have those schools where everyone's running away from them, that's a prime facility, that's a prime location where you could try and clone what's going on here. The second thing, the mayor talked about innovation, that's so important, of thinking differently. What we do not do in this country, we have 15,000 school districts. I keep asking someone to prove me wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. 15,000 school districts. We don't have one district in this country that systemically identifies their highest performing principals and their highest performing teachers and puts them in the most disadvantaged communities. And in fact, quite the opposite happens. We have all kinds of incentives for the greatest talent to go to the easier, the wealthier communities. And if this community, if Columbus could make that commitment, there's all kinds of difficulties there and all kinds of controversy behind it, but to systemically figure out who the best principals, the hardest working teachers are, and give them to the kids in the communities who need the most help, I promise you, you will not see people getting on buses and traveling 45 minutes away from their school 2 blocks from where they live.
So this is the 5-minute warning. the Secretary travels back to D.C. tonight, commercial airlines, and has to be at the airport. He has no private plane.
My jet? I'll take it.
Right, right.
Get in my jet, will you?
I keep looking for one.
Right. So, perhaps the last question to you is, as you have learned about Columbus and you've traveled the country, do you have any thoughts for us as we continue this work with the leadership of the mayor and the leadership of the commission and our school board and our elected officials?
I'll say a couple things. I mean, this has been, it's no secret, this has been a really rough time for the school district. And there's been some very significant challenges to credibility and to public confidence. It doesn't mean there hasn't been a lot of hard work and effort. Those blows are not fatal. They are real. They are severe. And I think it's time to sort of face those brutal truths. And for all the difficulties, I'm actually very, very optimistic. And sometimes it takes sort of a crisis to create an opportunity. And you're at a fork in the roads here. You're at a moment of crisis. You're losing far too many students. You're losing public confidence. But you have a chance, with this gentleman's leadership and with the entire city rallying behind it, to do something I think very, very special. And I know there's probably tremendous cynicism and skepticism. You've seen plans come and go, and as the mayor unveils the commission's report, having benchmarks, having accountability, and measuring against that going forward. But this community, I think, has a chance to do something pretty extraordinary. And so I would urge you to be bold. I would urge you to stay the course and to stay together. I would ask you to hold me and my team to be accountable for being a good partner and being with you for the long haul. But for all the distress, for all the angst, for all the challenges, you can do something that could be not just great for the children here. You should be thinking bigger than that. You can do something that's a model for the country. And if you think in those kinds of terms, think big, think big. And if you do that and put the work in behind it, this could be an amazing, 4, 5, 6 years going forward. And I just urge you to take full advantage of it. There's a huge sense of urgency. If it doesn't happen now, I don't know when it happens for the city and these kids. You got a moment, take it, run with it, seize it.
Mayor, we have 1 minute left. Is there anything you want the Secretary to say to the President on behalf of Columbus the next time they get together?
You got my list?
That was more than a look inside his face.
I think the President's effort on early childhood education is critical to residents of Columbus. And when you see him, extend my thanks. We got to get that done at the federal level so that we can get it done at the local level. We're committed to this. We're committed to early childhood education. We're going to do everything we can to ensure that young people, 4 years old, are able to get a good quality education and get them ready for life. But we need help. And I know you're behind it, and I know the President's behind it, and I want to first extend thank you. But we have a sense of urgency here for those resources to get to us. And if they end up going to the state, we want all that money to come to Columbus. All right?
Let's thank the Secretary of Education, okay?
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Arne. Thank you. We have a...
Want me to sit down?
Yes, please.
Oh.
For a second, Mr. Mayor. We have just a closing word by our City Council President, former Columbus School Board member, Andrew Ginther, who has been very committed to the issue of education for many years.
Well, now you know why Secretary Duncan is really thought to be one of the great stars of the Obama administration. And let's give him another round of applause as he takes off here. A couple other key people. If we could have members of the mayor and my Education Commission, please stand and be recognized. I know a number of you are here this evening. Please give them a round of applause. These folks have been spending a lot of time together, working very hard, and the mayor and I are counting on you and your leadership to help shape the transformational change we seek for the children of this community. And what kind of education gathering would we have without recognizing the best teacher as recognized by the state, Teacher of the Year in 2013, Carol Morbeitzer? A public school teacher right here in Central Ohio. And again, to the State Superintendent, Superintendent Ross, thank you very much for being here tonight. The weeks and months ahead are just the beginning. And I would encourage each of you to engage in this process. The mayor and I are very optimistic about our future. And we know with great partners like Secretary Duncan, Congresswoman Beatty, we can shape that future together. I ask you to engage through a number of ways. Facebook, reimaginecolumbus.education.org. Get involved in the conversation. Take responsibility to make sure that your friends and neighbors, those you worship and work with, all are engaged in this process. The challenges are great. The obstacles are many. But there is nothing more important than improving access to quality education for the children of this community. Thank you all for being here tonight. Let's get to work.
All right. We invite you to stay. There will be a reception. We invite you to stay for another half hour and chat. And again, thank you for giving up a portion of your Friday night. Thank you, Mayor.